Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School podcast. As you know, if you have been paying attention, I'm not here right now. No, this is not some mind F. I'm on vacation in Florida, hopefully enjoying some sun, maybe a little sand. I don't know. Certainly a cocktail. Definitely hope to be enjoying a cocktail right now, wherever I am. But I am pre-recording this, as it were, on Friday afternoon, Friday, February 17th. So, yeah, apologies if you're still waiting to hear the much anticipated reaction to Julius Randle's all-star performance or Quentin Grimes' Rising Stars. I mean, surely he's going to win the Rising Stars MVP. Do they still? I'm assuming they still give a Rising Stars MVP. Perhaps some Sims dunk contest reactions. Yeah, you're not going to hear any of that right now. But you will at some point, probably pretty soon. At the end of the week, it would be my guess. When we're back in the full swing of things. Anyway, yeah, it's just me right now, and like I said, recording this before the All-Star festivities, and this is a mailbag episode. So, hell of time today. I knew I wanted to get one more episode kind of in the docket. That's not the right word. In the bin. Sure, let's go with bin. One more episode in the bin that we could run next week, and put out a call for questions on Twitter. Of course, Knicks Nation did not disappoint. So I glanced at some of these as I was getting set up and whatnot. I have not given a ton of thought to any of them, although I've given a slight amount of thought. So hopefully this will not be me fumbling through searching for answers. And I'm just going to go in order in which these questions appear on my like the responses to the initial call for questions. So there's not going to be much rhyme or reason to why they are in the order that they are. Apologies if it seems a little jumbled that way, but we're going to work our way through it. Okay. So just looking right here. First question from Johnny Bones. Would replacing Obi with Kevin Love make this team better? My inclination is to say yes. I don't know if that's the right answer, but my inclination is to say yes. I think Kevin Love obviously has a much longer track record as a shooter. I think Obi, I mean, I don't know which one of those two is the better defender right now. I don't know. I don't even know how relevant that is, because I think playoff basketball, you're probably not wanting to push those guys past 12 or 14 minutes anyway, and you're only going to be playing them against lineups where you feel like there's not going to be someone out there. Although playoff basketball, I mean, there aren't a ton of lineups out there that give you safe landing spot. Not to say that Obi is someone that needs to be hidden on defense. I guess I'm actually talking myself into Obi being a better defender or a more reliable defender than Kevin Love at this point in his career. But Kevin Love also like rebounding. He's still an elite rebounder. He's just such a smart player. He's so savvy. Just because he's gotten so many minutes and has so much experience in the league. I think Obi is on track to be a super savvy, super smart player, but he's still a third-year guy. So I don't think he's quite there yet in the way that Kevin Love is there. Yeah, short answer is, does Kevin Love make the team incrementally better? Maybe a little bit more than incrementally better, sure. Is it good enough that I am taking Obi out of the rotation and signing Kevin Love? Absolutely not. 100% no. No. Besides the fact that it sounds like Kevin Love's going to go sign with Miami. Okay. Fritz Alcindor Jr., which player on the Knicks, if injured, would be the biggest loss? Could the Knicks win a series without them? It's funny. There was a point in time a couple weeks ago where I might have answered Mitchell Robinson to this question. I think there are several answers that you can talk yourself into being the right answer. But I also think this is a question where it's like, hey, let's not overthink it. Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson is the right answer. With with a tip of the cap to Julius Randle. And that's going to sound like a shot at Obi Toppin, and it might be a little bit of a shot at Obi Toppin. I just, not to say that a different version of this team couldn't succeed with Obi in Randle's place. I do think there's probably a version of this team with this roster that could find success. I wonder how big the adjustment period would be. So I do think Randle would be a huge loss. I think Quickley would be a huge loss. Mitch, obviously, despite the fact that they have survived, I think Mitch is, shows himself to be a huge loss. But like, what are we even talking about here? It's Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson's the engine. He's the straw that stirs the drink. He's the guy that gives you confidence that they're not going to blow a game at the end of a close game. He directs the offense. I mean, it's Jalen Brunson. We don't need to expand on that anymore. Okay, this is a question I did see before. Kevin Danishevsky, what is your favorite Knicks season and why? I'm going to try not to go on for too long about this because I could sit here and I could talk about the answer to this question for half an hour. It's a tough question for me to answer because there are 3 seasons that come to mind as contenders for this. And those 3 seasons are the We Here season 2 years ago, the 2012-13 season, and then the 99 because they didn't play games until 1999 started in January. So the 1999 season. Here's why they're all flawed answers. The We Here season was amazing, but it was amazing because the team was obviously so little was expected of it. And then they started to play pretty good ball and they were a feisty story for 2-3 months. And then the 9-game winning streak happened. And it's like, oh my God, we here, hashtag. But that season also coincided with like a lot of professional growth for me personally and for Knicks Film School. Like I started interacting with fans after games that season. It was the moment that I feel like Knicks Film School kind of got, for me at least, it felt like Knicks Film School got put on the map in a different way than it had before. The 2012-13 season is certainly a great one for all the reasons that anyone who experienced that season remembers. Got off to the hot start, had a really strong finish, won a playoff series, which was nice, all that stuff. But again, the reason why that season sticks out, perhaps also in my mind, is because it was the season I started dating my wife. And we watched a ton of games together. We had a little bar in Long Island called, oh my goodness gracious, this place was a dumpity dump of a bar. Was it called the Moonlight Pub? I want to say it was on like one of the major roads in Long Island. I think it was called Moonlight Pub or Moonlight Lounge. Moonlight Pub. Let's go with Moonlight Pub. And we were going. We watched Steph Curry's 54-point game there. We watched the OKC game there, where like there were some just insane shots down the stretch. I think that game might have went into overtime. J.R. Smith hit like a 30-some-odd foot three. Couple other games that I remember we watched there. So like again, there's a carryover. And then the last answer is the 99 season, except here's the thing about the 99 season. The 99 season itself, the regular season sucked. That was not a fun season. That team finished 27-23. Like they were not good. It was a lot of aggravation. It was a lot of consternation. And the team was, talk about some unwatchable basketball. Go back and look at the box scores if you want from that year. Oof, goodness gracious. But the postseason run was, just beyond magical. It was a fairy tale ride, or a fairy tale story, magic carpet ride. I combined 2 analogies. Of the three, I'm going to go with the 2012-13 season. Just because, like, I have so many specific memories. I remember the season opener against Miami, I listened to that whole game waiting on a gas line for gas because it was right after, Sandy. And then I remember where I was for like every one of those playoff games and a lot of games in between, all good stuff. And they were, so 2012-13. Just Had asks, can Tibbs fans come out of hiding now, or do we still have to pretend that he needs to be let go, even though he's been successful anytime the team gives him what he needs? And It's not just this team. He's been successful anytime any team has given him what he needs. But you know what? In fairness, I think you could say that about a lot of coaches. I'm not going to sit here and wax poetic about Tibbs. That is positively the last thing anyone wants to hear. I've done it enough for a lifetime. I think here's what I'll say. I think here's the happy medium. The happy medium is if you are a Tibbs critic and someone who believes like his faults outweigh his positives, you could at least sit back and like look at what the season has become and what the team is this season and say like, okay, maybe he's not the forever coach, but he's a good coach for right now. He's a good coach for this team right now. And, we should be happy we have him. And I think that's a happy compromise. Manti Python, who is your favorite current Knick and what year did he graduate from Villanova? My favorite current Knick. There were two answers for me here, and it's Brunson and Quickley. I think I have to go with Brunson. What year did Brunson graduate from Villanova? Was it 2000? He left after his junior year, didn't he? I think. But whatever. It's Jalen Brunson. I mean, watching Jalen Brunson do things that like just make the shots that he makes. Like Melo did that. He did that for several years here. That was fun. But there was also this feeling like, I'll just admit myself, I don't know if this is a correct or incorrect emotion to have had while watching Melo, but there were a lot of years where I'm like, man, it's great seeing him make these shots, but I wish he passed the ball a little bit more. And I don't have that with Brunson as much. Is that because Brunson, also gets 6 point whatever assists per game? Is it just because it's new and fresh and maybe a year or two from now I'm going to be feeling like, okay, pass the ball a little bit more? Is it because I just feel like Brunson needs to do a little bit more for this team? I don't know. I don't know if it's fair or unfair, but Brunson's the answer. Gizzle asks, which makes more sense? Swapping Hart into the starting lineup for Grimes or RJ? Which would you choose and which do you think Tibbs chooses? I would leave the starting lineup as is. We talked about this on the pod with Jeremy. If forced, I would sub out Hart for RJ, just because I think they need Grimes' quick trigger and just quickness in general. Like he's a quick decision maker, quick mover. And his defense in the starting line, all of those things. I think we need all that in the starting lineup. So I would sub him out for RJ. I do not think Tibbs would choose either. I think he's going to keep the starting lineup the way it is. And if Tibbs was forced to make a change to the starting lineup, I think he would choose the same. I think he would sub out Hart for RJ. Ewing1357 asks, are the Knicks no longer a rebuilding team? Not evaluating our lottery pick, not using the draft to acquire talent seem like acceptable, expected paths. These seem like moves of an established club. Thoughts? So I feel like we haven't talked about this a while. This is a conversation that I had at times earlier this year in terms of like the Knicks being one of the few, and like there were teams that entered this season as clear, like we're going for it contenders. And then there were teams entering this year where it's like, okay, they're either clearly tanking or maybe they surprise for a little bit and then they end up going the other direction. And then there was the NBA's middle ground. And to me, looking at this year, rightly or wrongly, the NBA's middle ground felt smaller than ever before. It feels like usually there's maybe 10 to 12 teams in the middle ground. This season, it's like, okay, who is it? It's the Knicks, it's the Hawks. And the Hawks actually probably shouldn't have even been in there, but let's put the Hawks in there too. This is before the season. Wizards, let's say Raptors, Bulls, Kings, Blazers. Am I missing anybody? Yeah. So, and even like, I don't know. That's really it. And so it's like, what did I name? 7 teams? I think there's been some obvious separation between the haves and the have-nots within that group that I just named. But here's this is a path of their choosing. And I think, again, we've danced around it all season, or not danced around it. We've talked about it openly all season. Like they've told us what path they're going to pick. They're going to continue trying to win games, trying to be as good as possible. And then when the proper trade becomes available for a star, they're going to make it. Does it mean they're an established club right now? Does it mean they're a contending team right now? Does it mean that they have all of their necessary pieces right now? Absolutely not. And no to those other questions, but it does mean they have a very clear path that they want to take, and they're going to try to take that path when the opportunity presents itself. And as a result of that path that they have chosen, they are not operating anything like a rebuilding club. And I would argue they didn't operate like a rebuilding club last year, or quite frankly, the year before that. Like they went out and traded for Derrick Rose and didn't move Julius Randle. A rebuilding club trades Julius Randle and doesn't trade for Derrick Rose and the whole thing. So they haven't acted like a rebuilding club in a while, since pre-Leon Rose. Okay. JK, if Leon and co were intent on moving RJ and upgrading the starting small forward position this offseason, who would be the perfect target? So to me, perfect target implies realistic target. And it's funny. Let me see if I could pull this up real quick. Someone asked me a question earlier on to the Knicks Film School Gmail account as a potential podcast mailbag question, and I answered it there. I'm going to bring it up here. And the question was, if you replaced RJ with, an all-star level wing, would this team be a championship contender? And my answer was yes. And the reason I'm bringing it up now is who would be the perfect target. So in my estimation, if you replaced RJ with the following players, this team would be a contender: Jason Tatum, Kawhi Leonard, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, again, not in any particular order. And then the 2 borderline ones I have are Paul George and Jimmy Butler. So to answer this question, who would be the perfect target? And thanks, Matt Smith, for the question to the email account. Tatum is not realistic. Devin Booker is not realistic. Kevin Durant is not realistic. Jimmy Butler is going to be 34 years old. And for as much as I would, God knows, oh my God, would I love to watch Jimmy Butler on this team. He's Jimmy Butler. Too old. Your timeline gets cut too short. That leaves the 2 Clippers guys. I mean, what do the Clippers do if they lose in the play-in this year, or get smoked in the first round? Are they just going to run it back? Or are they going to try to trade? They get access to another future first round pick this summer that they could trade plus 2 swaps, so they can make a big trade. But are they going to further, dig out their own grave with this core? I don't know what they do. So to me, one of those 2 options feels realistic. Of the 2, it's funny. I actually think it's an interesting debate because Kawhi, he doesn't play games. Is he the better player when healthy? Yeah, he's the better player when healthy, but he doesn't play games. So there's a part of me that actually wants to answer Paul George as the ideal trade target. So that would be my answer to that question. Joyless Division asks, as you've said, it seems like RJ is another RJ trade question. It seems like RJ could very well be dealt this offseason. Other than Levine and Anunoby, who do you see as possible targets for an RJ-centric trade package? So this I'm going to shift to what do I think is the most likely, because I have a whole newsletter coming out for this week. It may actually be already out by the time you're listening to this, in which I go through literally every possible trade target in the league, not specifically RJ centric packages. I don't even get into the packages. I just get into who could I see becoming available. if you're asking me like the most realistic, I think it's Towns. It's Karl-Anthony Towns, because Minnesota, like, again, I don't know if they're going to have enough data for them, so enough internal data for themselves to make themselves happy with, like, okay, we feel like we know what this core will be moving forward, or we feel like we know enough to know that this team is not going to get to the promised land as currently constructed. We need to make another move. The move is Towns. That's obvious, because they're not getting anything for Gobert, and they're not trading Anthony Edwards. And the time to do it is now. Like, it's not, again, if they make that internal decision, why wait? Trade Towns now, get the biggest package you can. And I think the Knicks would be in on that. And I think RJ, like, why can't RJ work next to Anthony Edwards? I don't see any reason why not. Gobert, good guy for RJ to pair with, as a screen and dive guy, offensive rebounder, the whole thing. And I to say, does that mean I want Karl-Anthony Towns on the Knicks? No, that is not to say that, to be very clear. Okay. No more Cam talk. I swear I didn't make that Twitter name up. Do you think the Knicks will roster at least one of their potential first round picks from this upcoming draft? If so, what player archetype should they be looking for? So in terms of so let me just start by saying I have not been right about forecasting their roster in terms of, like, going into each of the last 3 years. I'm like, well, clearly they're not going to have room for this or that, or, such player, because they have all these other guys here. And then it turns out that, like, oh, yes, they absolutely do have room, because whether it's a Fournier falls out of the rotation, or a Derrick Rose falls out of the rotation, or, shit goes haywire last year, or like even the year before that, Reggie Bullock emerged. I mean, remember, like, pre-training, like, or in training camp before the We Here season, we weren't even sure, like, Reggie Bullock was going to play a big role, and he ended up playing, like, one of the biggest roles for the team. So, like, to sit here right now and be like, oh, they are going to have room in the rotation for someone, or they're not, I think it's premature. My gut feeling is the answer is no. And I think they're only going to wind up with the Mavs pick. And I don't think that they will roster that player. I think they will trade that somehow, some way. I think they will trade that pick. That is my gut feeling. I could be wrong. My gut feeling right now, with so much uncertainty, is that they will not roster that player. I kind of hope I'm wrong. It would be great if they could continue getting an influx of young talent, but we'll see, because eventually the cover is going to run dry. But if they did roster the player, what player archetype should they be looking for? I mean, that also depends on, like, what else they do. Just in an NBA, a two-way, as close as you could come to getting, like, a two-way multi-positional player. That's all. Like, it was a great archetype for them to have drafted Jalen Williams on OKC, and they traded the pick so they couldn't draft him. Like, somebody like that will be great. But yeah, I don't know if that person is going to be available. And again, I don't think they're going to keep the pick. Knicks fan 180. Who do you see as a realistic trade target this offseason to help the Knicks make the next jump? So this is kind of a third version of a question that I've already kind of answered twice. I will just say that the way this question is phrased, to help the Knicks make the next jump, again, unless something goes haywire with the Clippers, really haywire with the Clippers, I don't see a trade out there that for me, I would consider as, like, it's good. Cause, like, yeah, could they Might they possibly trade for Karl-Anthony Towns this summer? Absolutely. To me, the next jump is your move, because right now we're sitting here talking about a Knicks team like, hey, could they win a first round series if they get the right matchup? The next jump to me is like maybe not legit contender, like inner circle contender, but like, hey, if things broke right, could we be talking about a conference finalist? That to me is the next jump. And like, you're no longer like a major star away from being a real contender. You're like maybe a big tinkering or a big tinker here or there. You're an OG Anunoby away from being a contender, something like that, right? Like, can you be Cleveland or, next year, or like a Memphis? Like, not those exact the way those teams are put together, but just in terms of expectations for those teams and what we think that they're capable of. And I don't see it unless something really goes haywire with the Clippers situation. I guess to throw just one more out there. Let me give you at least one more. I mean, I'm always going to be having my eye on Philly. Always going to be having my eye on Philly perpetually until they either win it all or they decide to blow it up. Brandon Ingram is a name that I would keep an eye on. I would keep an eye on Brandon Ingram. Why not? Jonas Plout, if you could take one starter and one bench player from teams that are currently outside the top 10 in each conference, oh my God, and insert them into the Knicks lineup rotation, who would you choose? One starter and one bench player from teams that are currently outside of the top 10. All right. And currently insert them into the Knicks lineup rotation. Man, this is a good question. Okay, well, this is cheating, but LeBron James. LeBron James is my answer for which starter would I insert into the Knicks lineup rotation? There's a guy. He might make this version of the Knicks a contender this year, right now, right the hell now. Swap him out for RJ. There you go. And one bench player. That's a good one. So it has to be a bench player from one of the teams that are outside the top 10. It's not like someone that would be coming off our bench. It has to be someone that is currently coming off a bench for another team. Man, I can't believe I'm about to say what I'm about to say. Is Alec Burks the right answer? I think Alec Burks might be the right. Alec Burks or Buddy Hield. Not Buddy Hield. Ben Mathurin. Let's go with Mathurin just because I don't need the hate mail for selecting Alec Burks. KK asks, what would you consider the most perfect but realistic dream offseason for the Knicks this summer? I'd really be curious again to see what the price on getting Paul George is. Again, this is my definition of realistic. So if you're hearing that and you'd be like, Paul George, that's your dream scenario. Okay. My definition of realistic, I don't think there's going to be, I just don't see a lot happening this summer at all. And honestly, like, there's a world where I might be able, if I sat down and I really thought about that and really, depending on what the price for getting Paul George is, there's a very real world where I would sit there and be like, you know what? The realistic dream offseason for the Knicks this summer is just hold all your cards and move on to next year and wait for the better star to become available. That might honestly be my answer. But just like, since that's a kind of a boring answer right now, sitting here today, I would probably say, if the price is right, go get Paul George with, again, a tip of the cap to Brandon Ingram. Keep an eye on New Orleans. Johan Peters will quickly resign. Yes, I think they will extend quickly this offseason. Kelv asks, should the Knicks have a mascot? No. What should it be? Nothing. I like this question. JJ Buffon, if Tibbs had been blessed with the athleticism to play in the NBA, what current player would his play have most closely resembled? I feel like someone like Deuce is the most obvious answer, but deep down, I think he'd be more like a score first point guard. LOL. I did see this question before. The first name that came to my mind was Alex Caruso, just because he is ultimate effort, energy, little things, technically sound in every way, shape, or form, made the most of his abilities. He's bald. Tibbs is balding. Pain in the ass to play against. So Alex Caruso would be my answer. Rod Doe asks, why do you hate Cam Reddish? I don't hate Cam Reddish. I don't hate anybody in basketball or the world. I just have skepticism about Cam Reddish's ability to be a part of a team that wins at a very high level, unless he changes things around with how he approaches the game, which we'll see. Maybe he does that. I hope he does. Frank, what's up, Mac? It's your boy Frank from Patreon. If Tibbs, I like this question. I saw this one before too. If Tibbs is forced to sit RJ down in meaningful fourth quarter minutes down the home stretch and in the playoffs, how will that impact their offseason plans in trading for a star player? So my assumption at this point, just my assumption. And the next question, by the way, Matt, if you were Leon, what would you do about RJ Barrett? I am of a few assumptions right now. Assumption number one: the Knicks would like to do what they tried to do last summer, which is parlay RJ Barrett into a star. I think there is an interesting discussion to be had about RJ's current perception / valuation around the league. I also think that at this point, and this is not to say that there would not be teams who would look at RJ Barrett and be like, we can get everything out of him that the Knicks haven't been able to get. There's a ceiling there that I think has escaped the Knicks and will not escape us because he's a worker. He cares about the right things. He's about the right things. The things that he's not doing well now, or that he's just not doing now, period, we've seen him do before. We've seen all the pieces. It's just about putting them together and getting him more consistent. I think there are a team or teams out there who would look at him and say they're like, and believe that. I do not think anyone is going to pay the premium like on that valuation. I think everyone's going to look at him and this is to answer the question directly. Like, if he did, like, if I don't think Tibbs would ever do this, but if it was like an Elfrid Payton situation where game 2 against the Hawks, Payton went to the bench and eventually was like mothballed. I don't think, Tibbs isn't doing that, but like, if we're in if we're in round 1 of the playoffs and like RJ starts out and he's having one of these games and Tibbs yanks him, 6 minutes into the first quarter or 5 minutes into the first quarter, maybe gives him 2, 3, 4 minutes before halftime, first 3, 4, 5 minutes after halftime. And you look up at the end of the game and be like, wow, RJ Barrett played 14 minutes in this game or 16 minutes in this game. Do I think that would raise sufficient enough alarm bells around the league such that other teams, if they were to negotiate with the Knicks during the summertime, would be like, dude, we all saw it. There's no putting the cat back in the bag. Like, again, I think the book is already out in terms of people around the league recognizing that like RJ Barrett is no longer the apple of Leon Rose's eye and that they do want to parlay him into something. But I do think that if that happened, it would add enough fuel to the fire to the point where it would make teams even more demanding in terms of what they would ask for in an RJ centric trade. Again, to be very clear, not that I think anyone is paying the price of like what RJ could be right now. And I honestly, I'm not sure that there's, and I mean, maybe he comes out after the All-Star break and just goes on an absolute freaking tear. But guess what? If that's the case, I don't think maybe they're not trading him, So it's such a complicated situation / scenario. But to answer your question most directly, Frank, like how will it impact their offseason plans? I think they want to trade for a star regardless. It would just make their life a little harder, And again, Matt, to answer your question, what would I do about RJ Barrett if I was Leon Rose? Like I would sit back and see how the rest of the season went. And then, he has information that I don't in terms of seeing the behind the scenes. It's tough for me to answer that. Urim Lekaj. Hey, John, how about those 2 open roster spots? What would you try young prospects? He mentions Bolmaro, who just got waived by somebody, I forget, or try out some available vets. Thanks. I think I said like a week ago, I think they're just going to get some hardworking end of the bench types, good practice players. Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype reported, as I'm recording this today, so Friday, February 17th, that they're going to maybe convert DaQuan Jeffries from a 2-way into a full NBA contract. I think that's fine. Maybe if there's a young player you want to try to take a flyer on, there's no one out there that I see. Like, to me, it'd be more of like a young player, but who is more of an end of the bench type, a guy that maybe if you really develop him, he could contribute as like a rotation player someday. I would do that more than like, hey, this guy was a real prospect once upon a time. Let's see if we can find what everybody else was missing. Like when they signed Henry Ellison a few years ago, who was like the 17th pick in the draft, and they signed him to a 2-way deal. I think like I wouldn't go for someone like that. Matt asks, who's your favorite current Knick and why? Answered that already. Jalen Brunson. Oh my God. Ronaldo Balkman superfan. Where does Cam Reddish rank among the 527 Knicks players ever? Top 450 ? Yeah, I think he sneaks in there. Alex Canzone, another RJ-centric trade question. If the Knicks can't get a star trade done this offseason, do you think they could keep RJ past this offseason or swap him for a similar salary that can contribute more, like a Bridges or an OG? They like both of those guys. You're talking RJ plus multiple first-round picks. Not like Mikal. Oh my God! Like. I don't even want to say out loud what I'm thinking about what the Nets would ask for in addition to RJ in exchange for Mikal Bridges. And I don't think the Knicks would pay it because I don't think they could afford to give up that much in addition to RJ. OG, I don't know. We've heard a lot about what the market for OG Anunoby is. I don't feel like I have a great feel for what that market actually is. Like, could the Knicks offer RJ plus all of their protected first rounders, or like maybe all but one of their protected first rounders, and like one future unprotected with a swap in between plus RJ and get OG? Like, maybe would they do that? I don't know. Do I want them to do that? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. That's a tough one, but it would be something like that. I would think about it for sure. Frank Levy asks, what's with Rokas Jokubaitis? I have no idea. I don't expect to ever see him in a Knick uniform, if I'm being frank. He probably comes over when he knows he's going to have a significant role with the team, and I don't think that's going to be with the Knicks. 2020 Randall asks, John, what do you think RJ should do to regain his confidence in his jumper? I'm concerned that our military might mistake his UFOs, oh my God, for spy balloons. We all know that RJ isn't as bad as he's been lately. This is where it's like, I'm very clearly not an athlete. I've never played sports at anywhere close to like forget about a high level. Like I don't know. I really don't know. I feel like someone from the organization or multiple someones from the organization should have a heart to heart with him, not trying to sell him on something that isn't true. Like, hey, you're a part of our foundation. We're going to be with you through thick and thin. We don't care how many jumpers you miss. Just keep after it. But like just a real genuine conversation. Like, hey man, look, like just, you're a scorer. Keep getting after it. And the chips are going to fall where they may, but we believe in you. I mean, I don't even know how that conversation goes. Honestly, I don't know how that conversation goes, but someone needs to talk to him. And also like, getting in the gym, putting up shots. It's probably a good idea. Can't hurt, right? Okay. I think I have a couple other bonus ones. So I texted a good friend of the pod and friend of the newsletter in particular, Ray Marcano. Give me a question because he always gives me good questions. So Ray Marcano asks, Josh Hart is likely to decline his 23-24 $12.9 million player option. What will he likely command on the open market, and will the Knicks pay it? The Knicks are going to pay whatever it takes to get him. I think I'm just going to steal my answer from Bobby Marks. Bobby Marks, after the trade was made, I think spitballed a number in the $15 to $17 million annual range for Josh Hart. I think that makes sense. 15, 16, something like that. 4 for 60. You don't usually see 4 years for a player of Josh Hart's caliber. You usually see something more like 3 years. Would they go 4? Maybe get a little bit of a break. Here's another one. Would they try to get him to a contract structure that would allow them to get the maximum available cap space in 2024, if that's the way they want to go? So, for instance, the way you might do that, if it's 4 for 60, would be, or 4 for like 56, even maybe. I don't know if you do that. Maybe if you gave him a player option on the last year, but like, let's say 4 for 60 to make the math easier. 4 for 60, start out at 15 million, decline by the maximum 8% allowable. So that means the salary goes down for 2024, 25, and then increase by the maximum 8% allowable for 25, 26. And then on the final year of the deal, increase by the maximum 8% allowable once again. Something like that sort of contract structure. If they want cap space in 2024, which I suspect they might. And then one more bonus question from Ray. Deuce has shown he could be a very nice role player with his limitations, shooting and size, and it makes him an imperfect fit on a team with small guards. Which other teams would he be a good fit for, with given his skills? Here's the tough one, Ray, is like, I believe in Deuce. I don't know that there's any team that is going to look at a small guard who is an offensive question mark. And again, we're talking about like a team that's like their goal is to eventually win a championship, right? Because that's every team's goal. So what team is going to look at him and be like, even if we like the Clippers have a ton of wings, right? And the Clippers are all about defense and switchable defense on the whole thing. Like, are they going to be like, yeah, sure, we don't have another small guard, so he's a better fit for us? He just needs to show that he can be a consistently productive offensive player. I think he was moving in that direction with the Knicks before he got excised from the rotation, which is why my answer is I think he can work just fine here as a backup to the starting point guard. I think that's fine. I think he's always going to be a backup. So if you're only talking about a player who's going to play 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes a game, on the right night, what does he really need to do to earn that? He just needs to be a consistent offensive player, knock down open jumpers, take them, fire away with regularity, make enough of them, put the ball on the floor if the situation calls for it, make the right pass, be productive around the rim when you have a good look, like get fouled occasionally. Dude never gets fouled. Go up strong, be better around the rim. He needs to be better around the rim. And I have to say this, if you're a defense first guard and you're that size, you kind of have to be perfect defensively. And he's been excellent defensively. I don't know that he's been perfect. So maybe improve the defense a little bit too. I know that's probably sacrilegious. And then let me see if I got one more. I asked him. I don't know if he came through with an answer yet. Let's see here. Yes, he did. I think this is going to be the last one. Good day. It's your boy, John. This is from Robert Cross. The setting. We are sitting here on the eve of the NBA Eastern Conference Finals. Imagine if your New York Knicks find themselves ready to take the floor tomorrow. How did they get here was the catalyst. Hashtag 53 wins. Okay. This is a tricky one because Robert is asking me to not just forecast one playoff series win, but two. And it would be easy for me to be like, oh, they get to the 5 seed, they play the Cavs, and they beat the Cavs. Because I can see that. I can see them beating the Cavs. It's not crazy. But then if you do that, you're facing Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. And I just, for the life of me, I don't see them beating Boston. I also don't see them beating Milwaukee. A healthy Milwaukee team. And all due respect to Milwaukee's half-court offensive flaws, I just don't think it's a great matchup for them. And I understand Jalen Brunson had a nice last game against Drew Holiday. I just don't see it. So I think here's the path. Philly goes on the run of all runs and gets the 1 seed. We face off against Cleveland. No. Well, now I'm thinking about, okay, well, what if we fall to 6? Cleveland moves up to 3. Philly falls down to 4. We beat Cleveland 6-3. Philly beats Boston in round 2. No, wait, then we're still in round. No, that doesn't work either. Okay. Yeah. So we're doing Knicks Cavs 4-5. Philly moves up to 1. We face Philly in the second round. Is there a universe in which I could see us beating the Philadelphia 76ers? Only because that team imploded once in a series it was supposed to win. Why can't they implode again? If everybody else clams up around Embiid and Harden pulls a Harden, I don't know. Probably would take an injury. I don't know who the injury would have to be. Maybe Embiid gets dinged up, or maybe Embiid enters that season dinged up, or series dinged up. Maybe that's it. That would be the best. That would be the best answer that I would have. And you know what? On that note, I just did one more refresh on Twitter, and the first question I see, here we go. This will be the last one from Krunoslav. RJ, Obi, Mitch, this year's first round pick, which we actually don't have to trade. So first round picks in 24, 26, 28, and 30. We could do that trade after this draft. Not this year's first round pick, but 24, 26, 28, and 30. Swaps in 25, 27, and 29. Would this be the offer for Embiid in July? Is it too much? It is not too much. Bring me Joel Embiid. And that is how we will end this pod. Thank you, everybody, for checking out another edition of the Knicks Film School podcast. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget, we got good stuff coming up end of this week. Pre-games, post-games, the whole thing. I will be back live and in full living color before you know it. And thanks for the questions, everybody on Twitter. Sorry I couldn't get to all of them if there were some other people who submitted some questions later. But again, thank you. Happy All-Star break, everybody. And we will talk to you soon. Peace out.